Hello everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us for the Behind the Numbers weekly listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. This is the Friday show that reviews the most stop traffic media news stories of the week. I'm your host, Marcus Johnson. In today's show, a turning point for Facebook.
Because as much as all these things about Facebook are very true, these are criticisms that have been lodged at any type of media for generations.
How do people feel about digital ads?
I think that a lot of what consumers say they don't like about ads, that they're intrusive, that they are too personally targeted, that's what makes those digital ads work so well.
How to make sure people who work in the office or remotely have the same career opportunities.
A lot of these companies are grappling with this new reality of most people, wanting to work hybrid or wanting to work fully remotely and being able to do their job, but, knowing that back in the day, you were supposed to be in the office every single day, 5 days a week.
And where in the world can you get alcohol for free? All right, folks, join me for this episode. We have three people. Let's meet them. We start with our senior analyst covering global trends. It's Jasmine Emberg.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Jasmine. Thanks for hanging out. We're also joined by one of our briefings analysts. It's Nina Getson.
Hi, everyone.
Hello there. And finally, we have one of our analysts on the retail and e-commerce team. It's Blake Drosch.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, chap. So, what do we have in store for you today? 4 segments as usual. We start with Story of the Week. We're talking about Facebook and some recent revelations about them. Have they reached a turning point? Probably not, but we'll talk about it. We then move to the Game of the Week, where our contestants Nina, Jasmine, and Blake go head-to-head, give us the best takeaways they can from each of the 4 stories we have for you. We then move to Working from Somewhere, a newish segment where we talk about what it's like to live in this hybrid world of work. We then move to Dinner Party Data, which closes out the show. We talk about random things we've just recently learned. But we start segment 1, Story of the Week. Let's do it. A turning point for Facebook. Shirin Ghaffari of Recode writes that a new series of reports from the Wall Street Journal, the Facebook Files, provides damning evidence that Facebook has studied and long known that its products cause measurable and real-world harm, including on teenagers' mental health, and then stifled that research while denying and downplaying that harm to the public. So what are we talking about here? A couple of things. Number one, there has been some damning internal studies about how bad Facebook products are for users. A couple of the findings. An Instagram study of teenage users found 1 in 3 teenage girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. Another finding, over 40% of US and UK Instagram users who reported feeling unattractive said the feeling started when using Instagram. Another one, teens told Facebook researchers that they felt addicted to Instagram and wanted to check it less often, but didn't have the self-control to rein in their usage. And also, teens blaming Instagram for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression, according to a 2019 Facebook study. So a lot of studies internally from Facebook pointing to how their products aren't helping people with their well-being. Second thing here is, in addition to the journal's reporting, there's also a discovery that Facebook has a VIP program that allows celebrities and politicians to break its rules. And number 3, in 2018, Facebook tweaked its algorithm in a way that encouraged people to share angrier content. So studies that show Facebook isn't great, a VIP program showing that Facebook's giving people preferential treatment, and another piece of research which shows that Facebook is encouraging people to share angrier content. So could this be a turning point, as these revelations only strengthen the case that growing chorus of lawmakers and regulators have been making for breaking up Facebook or severely limiting its power, asks Miss Ghaffari. Is it, folks? Is this some kind of a turning point? Do these reports feel different to you than previous ones?
I mean, honestly, I think these reports are really just confirming what many of us have known, or at least thought we knew about Facebook for a long time. And the most damaging thing here is that it proves that Facebook knew about these problems and potentially lied about them too. Is it a turning point? I'm going to say no. I mean, I think the problem here really for Facebook isn't going to be material. It's reputational. Once again, we all know Facebook has a PR problem, and, they're really working against the fact that even though they say that they're trying to correct their mistakes or implementing changes, the public and lawmakers are hesitant to believe it. But what's to say that this is going to be any different and make them actually change their services?
Yeah, what's going to tip the scales? Ina Fried of Axios, she was saying, is Facebook's social balance in the red? And I thought it was an interesting way of thinking about it, that what could tip the social balance into the red, and then therefore the when, if not now, when?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been in hot water for a really long time. It just seems like they're content to stay there. I think even something like this, which sounds really terrible, it's not even like last summer there was a whole advertiser boycott and yet nothing came out of it. Nothing happened to their bottom line. I think that they honestly at this point probably just accept the fact that like there's a lot wrong with their public image and like it doesn't really seem like they're doing much to change that.
And Nina, I think that's exactly it. I think what would tip the scale is if something actually hurt its bottom line. But we've seen again and again that, you know, nothing really gives it more than a dent. Even that boycott last year,
Absolutely.
There may be another boycott this year. It's unlikely that that's going to materially affect Facebook either.
Yeah, some of the reading for this suggesting that TikTok more focused on entertainment, Snapchat on kind of fun filters, Instagram focusing on people's kind of bodies and lifestyle. So I wonder if there's going to be a point where users just speak with kind of their legs and they walk over to other platforms. There was some research from Piper Sandler from April of this year looking at US teens' favorite social media platforms all the way from spring 2018 to spring 2021. Goes spring, fall, spring, fall, spring, fall each of the following years. And Snapchat currently is the most preferred platform, 31% of teens, US teens using that. TikTok, 30%, Instagram, 24%, and then Discord, Twitter, Facebook, way behind that with low single digits. But what you notice here is over the last, say, year or so, Snapchat's ticked down. TikTok is way up, 3 times as many people using that as they were a year ago. Instagram has also ticked down somewhat. So I wonder if eventually Facebook might have to make some kind of a change just because Instagram users, especially young ones, are saying enough is enough. I'm going to go use a more fun platform that doesn't make me feel bad about myself.
No, I don't think it's necessarily for those reasons. I think it's just because there are other platforms that are coming out that are fresh and they offer just a different experience that is new. Because as much as all these things about Facebook are very true, these are criticisms that have been lodged at any type of media for generations, right? I mean, people said television is like, you know, ruining people's attention spans when it came out. When cable news came out, people accused cable news organizations for creating divisiveness in the culture. When fashion magazines were more in vogue, those were, you know, sort of the media properties that were, you know, being accused of creating, you know, negative images around body images and things like that. So just because we know as a culture that things are bad for us, it doesn't mean that we're going to stop using them for that reason. That's never really happened. And the only thing that Facebook really has to worry about is not users leaving their platforms for reasons that are necessarily going to be a backlash against these criticisms. It's just simply because they're going to move to other more exciting, more relevant media platforms that, if you want to take sort of a really pessimistic view at, are probably going to create these different pockets of, you know, toxic elements that are going to carry over with them into other forms of media as they traditionally have. So I don't think that, like we've seen also with the advertising boycotts and a lot of the public outrage that we've seen in the past, that never has really scathed Facebook. But the things that, you know, are on the minds of Facebook executives and should be on the minds is always losing eyeballs to the next hot new property. And I think it's kind of as simple as that, even though that might be sort of a grim analysis of the situation. Just historically, that tends to be what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. Facebook executives were kind of comparing what's going on to the auto industry, saying, you know, cars, we have them, some parts of them are good, some parts are bad, but by and large, they're probably overall good for society. The difference there, which some of the reading was pointing out, is that the auto industry isn't a monopoly, and also it's heavily regulated. So I wonder if people, you know, this has more scrutiny because of Facebook's kind of stranglehold on social media and the fact that by and large is relatively unregulated. I was going to ask you guys what you think might come out of this. One of the things that could come out of this, it seems, is lawmakers trying to prevent Facebook from doing other things as opposed to retroactively trying to fix things. So US lawmakers currently trying to make Facebook abandon its plans to build a version of Instagram for Kids, Instagram Kids. They may not be able to do much at the minute, at least, in terms of about what Facebook has done in the past, but it seems like they're trying to get out in front of what they are currently working on. What else might come from this, if anything?
I would honestly, I agree 100% with what Jasmine opened the conversation with, is little to nothing. I think, in my opinion, I mean, there's always going to be, questions as Facebook expands into other areas and creates different revenue streams, whether or not it'll be called into question in terms of regulators. But I don't think that any of the sort of 5 points that this Wall Street Journal expose has sort of shined a light on really has that much to do with anti-competitiveness as much as it has to do with, as Jasmine pointed out, just proving and acknowledging a lot of the sort of toxic elements with its existing business model that have sort of been, all of these ideas have been floating around, and this is just another layer of sort of concrete evidence that they're putting forth here.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with the fact that I do think that the lawmakers might prevent them from creating new products like Instagram for Kids, which I don't necessarily think is the worst idea. I don't really know that kids should be on Instagram, even if it is their own. But another thing that I think that might come out of it is that Facebook might try to be more transparent about how it works and what it does. We've seen a couple of examples of that over the past couple of months where they've tried to proactively let people know what they're working on. But again, I think the issue here is the lack of trust and really getting people to believe that they are working in their best interest or making changes that will benefit the users of the platform. So all in all, I really don't think there's going to be much change out of any of this.
Yeah, to Nina's point as well about the boycott that happened last summer, the Stop Hate for Profit advertising boycott campaign against Facebook that was launched to remind folks in response to the controversy over Facebook refusing to censor a post from then President Trump that many folks argued incited violence. It was a PR headache, nothing more. Sarah Fisher of Axios was noting or questioning whether we're going to see another Facebook boycott. She was noting that leaders of the Stop Hate for Profit social media boycott group are discussing whether to organize another campaign against Facebook in light of the Wall Street Journal's investigative series, according to Common Sense CEO Jim Steyer. All right, folks, that's all we've got time for the lead story. Time now for In Other News. First, a quick word from our sponsor, VTEX. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, but what does it mean in real life? Digital Insider is a new podcast series about the digitization of retail, where business leaders, academics, and thinkers discuss how businesses are transforming and give their perspectives, practical advice, thought process, and lessons learned. Go to digitalinsider.com to learn more, or listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, folks, we are back. Time now for the game of the week. Today's game, What's the Point? Part of the show where we read out 4 stories and have our contestants Nina, Jasmine, and Blake tell us what they think is the main takeaway of the story. Okay answers get 1 point, good answers will get you 2, and despicably impressive answers will get you 3 points. Each person gets 20 seconds to answer before they hear this. Whoever has the most points wins, gets the last word. Let's play. Jasmine, you are first up. First round, how people feel about digital ads. A survey of 70 professionals at independent ad agencies conducted by Digiday Plus shows despite increased spending on digital ad channels, many advertisers are not confident digital ad channels are driving results, writes Insider Intelligence analyst Daniel Konstantinovich. A 2021 study by Kantar also found people are still generally much less positive about the ads they see on online channels. Of the 22 channels measured, the top 9 channels in their ad equity ranking were all offline, topped by cinema ads, movie ads, sponsored events, and print. Jasmine, how people feel about digital ads, what's the point?
The point is, so what? It is not news that people are irritated by digital ads, and even though marketers are now saying that they have little confidence in them, they're still spending the bulk of their budgets there. So yes, back to what we were talking about before, Facebook is facing big threats to its businesses, but it's been able to power through so many headwinds and still come out on top.
Nina.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that a lot of what consumers say they don't like about ads, that they're intrusive, that they are too personally targeted, like that's what makes those digital ads work so well. And so I don't think there's any winning here. Like, I think for marketers that are going to use digital ads, they have to make consumers a little unhappy maybe, but I think that's okay.
Blake.
Yeah, I think sort of this survey sort of frames digital advertising as that the industry has sort of like turned this corner where like they're losing trust in digital ads. But we were never, as an industry, advertisers were never really completely satisfied with the effectiveness of digital ads. And it's just become this industry that's grown really, really quickly to the point where it never had sort of reached that stable of maturity. And now it's sort of being framed as it's headed, past its peak and going downhill. But really, in terms of like this industry in general, you can make this argument that it's still at its relative nascency and that it's not sort of, we're not looking back on it. We're just looking at still a relatively young industry that is maturing. And these are, I think, just issues that digital advertisers have always had. So it's not really any news.
Yellow card for Blake. He plays fast and loose with the rules. I had to.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
No, please
it doesn't affect my chances of winning anyway. So I'm just gonna talk until I'm finished speaking.
That's true. Blake has zero chance of winning. Our second round, we start with Nina. Esports endorses.
When the game's fixed already. Sorry, continue.
Thanks. Esports endorses and finfluencers. Are consumers ready to embrace esports stars as endorsers, asks Peter Howard of Ipsos. He writes that as brands connect with esports to reach the elusive youth people, endorsements are sure to follow. But unless you have a reasonably niche brand or product, will enough people know who the endorsement is from? Highlighting perhaps the biggest issue for esports, their lack of a breakout star who can generate appeal outside of the core fans. Also, another group of people, Nina, that you write about, finfluencers, or financial influencers, as you explain. These folks are convincing others to use personal finance and stock trading apps, notes Bloomberg, and you note, Nina, that some can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to drive tens of thousands of signups for personal finance apps. So, Nina, esports endorsers and finfluencers, what's the point?
Yeah, I think that picking these two stories in tandem, it kind of answers the question. I think if influencers can make it big, which like finance is typically a very unsexy industry, if, personal finance apps can have influencers, then why not esports, especially as online gaming is continuing to grow. And I think it's true that there might be struggles in the beginning of picking who to sponsor, but I think that those kinks will work themselves out.
Blake.
Yeah, I think just, the influencer marketing industry for years has been just stressing the importance of micro influencers, because when you penetrate these sort of niche areas, whether it's financial services or esports, it can be really effective if you find the right individuals. And just because there hasn't been an esports star that's gone mainstream and can appeal to everyone yet, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be really effective within their niche.
Jasmine.
So I'm obsessed with the idea of fintech influencers. I think it can be a really, really good thing. I mean, managing money is such an important skill that a lot of people, especially young people, don't have, and they don't learn it in school. So if that's something that fintech influencers can teach them, then I am on board with it.
We move to our third round. We start with Blake, the pandemic pet boom. Over 11 million US households got a pet last year. So, what does the pandemic boom mean for marketers? Asks Hoang Nguyen, business data journalist at YouGov. Their data shows a few things. Number one, 2/3 of Americans say they have at least one pet in their household. Number two, significant shares of pet owners say they used social media, Facebook, Instagram, and then TikTok more often. Number three, they use social media mainly to keep in touch with friends, these pet people, look for information about topics that matter to them, use it for entertainment and news content, and then playing games. So, Blake, the pandemic pet boom, what's the point?
I mean, pet owners are no different from the general public, so separating them into a niche seems kind of ridiculous. I mean, the majority of American households have some pets, so you can't group them into any category. The only point here that I would take away from the pandemic is that pet products are booming in the retail e-commerce world. They grew 46.5% in 2020. So the behavior of buying pet products shifting from in-store to online, that's something to look at. But I wouldn't segment out pet owners. It's just the general population.
Jasmine.
The point is there are going to be way too many pet influencers on social media after this.
That's true.
Nina.
Yeah, I was wondering about that stat about using social media, because I feel like I've seen so many people over the pandemic start their like pet Instagrams where they just like share cute pictures of their pets. Yeah, I mean, I honestly agree with Blake. I think that there's very little utility in segmenting out pet owners unless you are a marketer for pet products specifically.
So, yeah, it seems like, personally, it seems like a lot of folks have a much more kind of like deeper relationship with their pets. Maybe they're spending more time with it than they usually would. Maybe they got it to help them through the pandemic. So it seems like there's a deeper connection there. A few other stats that jumped out to me. Only 5% of pet owners say they have taken out pet insurance. And the second point was American pet owners were just as likely to consider buying pet care products, food toys, as they were to consider products for their own personal health and well-being. We move to our final round. We start with Jasmine. What the pandemic keeps teaching us about customers' needs. What does the pandemic continue to teach us about customer wants and needs? Asks Paige Musto, VP of Corporate Marketing at User Testing. Empathy is a big one, especially since so much of the customer experience has moved online. And companies now often do business with people they never see, she notes. Adobe's 2021 Digital Trends Report of 13,000 advertising and e-commerce professionals worldwide even states that empathy is the future of experience. In addition to that, Amazon and Netflix have kept raising the bar on what an outstanding experience looks and feels like, as people have come to expect magic in their intentions with businesses, she writes. So Jasmine, what the pandemic keeps teaching us about customers' needs, what's the point?
So I'll preface this by saying that I believe that empathy and understanding in business is super important, but I really don't like the use of the word empathy in this context. To me, it reminds me so much of how authenticity is thrown around in the influencer marketing world. It's a buzzword, it's overused, and it really doesn't say much. What this article is really talking about is providing customers with a convenient, frictionless experience both on and offline, and that should be clearer.
Nina.
I 100% agree. That's what I wrote in my notes here. I said, am I allowed to say that I have notes? Am I supposed to pretend that I don't?
Oh, yeah. No, it means that you care. It means that you actually prepare for the show, unlike Blake.
I pretend I have notes when I don't have notes, so it seems like I'm prepared.
I'll go back. Yeah, what I wrote in my notes here is like, empathy is such marketer speak, the way that they use this. Like the word flexibility, it was thrown around a lot during the pandemic. Doesn't really mean a ton. I agree with you that the broader point about customer experiences was the more salient thing here. But I think that these supply chain issues that we're starting to see now means that that kind of frictionless customer experience is going to be really difficult to achieve.
Blake.
Yeah, I think we've sort of reached the point in the pandemic where we're seeing a lot of different like media stories talking about things that have changed as a result of the pandemic that like totally existed before the pandemic, and they're just slapping a different angle on it. And this is totally one of them. And I agree with both Nina and Jasmine. It's like, this is just basically like know your customer. Just because like we're trying to usher in like an era of empathy, like induced by the pandemic. It's nothing different compared to the basic bread and butter of advertising that's just been around forever.
So yeah, I liked the point it said how well organizations can adapt to continuing unpredictability of today's world will define market winners and losers for years to come. I kind of liked that, the idea of helping people with their now much more unpredictable, uncertain lives, like letting customers change flights last minute. I think that's going to continue, and companies that can do that are going to win. All right, so that's all we've got time for the game of the week. This week's winner, let's do a drum roll. Jasmine is this week's winner of the game of the week.
Really?
Congratulations to Jasmine. It's true.
Wow.
I wasn't going to be Blake, so it's 50-50 chance of winning. You won. Congratulations. You get the championship belt, and you also get 30 seconds of airtime to tell us anything you want. So a report you worked on, a podcast you recently listened to, a show you want to tell us about. What you got?
Oh, no. I am fully unprepared for this.
Everyone is.
I'll give you guys a tip. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's the best kind.
So as you know, Marcus, I've been traveling around for about a month or two. If you feel safe and comfortable traveling by air, Now is literally the best time to do it. I have never, ever seen flight prices so low, both domestic and international. And if you don't feel safe or comfortable right now, but think you might in the future, now is also the time to book for a future flight.
Yeah. And you're never more likely to get the whole road to
that
yourself,
is also true.
which might be the best feeling.
That's the best.
Ever. It's amazing how much you can hate a stranger when they come and they sit next to you in the aisle, which does not belong to you, but for some reason you feel it does. Anyway, congratulations to Jasmine. She won the game of the week.
Thank you, thank you.
It's time now for Working From Somewhere. So this is the segment where we talk about the new hybrid work environment. And today's article is talking about the benefits and the drawbacks of working remotely in terms of promotion and career development. So those who prefer or need to work from home may find co-workers in the office benefiting more, writes Rachel Feinzeig of the Wall Street Journal. So how should employees and managers handle any disparities? Brian Kropp, who leads human resources research at Gartner, notes that many of us have been dutifully plugging away from home, trading time in transit for longer working hours. But bosses might not see it that way. That's because managers consistently label in-office workers higher performers and give them bigger raises and promotions, even though Gartner's data shows remote workers perform slightly better and are more engaged. 6 out of 10 professionals thought it would hurt their career advancement if they admitted to their boss they'd rather keep working remotely, noted an April survey by research firm Korn Ferry. But many still want to do so, especially parents, notes a McKinsey & Company survey conducted last winter. Mothers, especially. What do you folks think of this article? What did you think of this article? Have you felt that way in your own decisions in terms of how to balance remote and in-person work?
I think that as someone who prior to the pandemic was basically in the office 5 days a week, give or take, and someone who's now been like permanently remote, like the experience that I have makes me feel like there isn't really a difference. I think that it may be more difficult if you're starting a job and you're remote entirely. That might be a feeling that you have if you do feel that there is a disconnect. But also, like, sort of on a third spot, like, I've had colleagues that have never worked in the office, and I've seen them be like championed by the companies that I've worked for, and I've seen like them be just as valuable of a presence in like our physical office without actually being there. So I don't know. I mean, I think theoretically that sounds very feasible, but I can't say that I've actually seen that play out in my experience, at least.
So I have worked fully remotely on and off for the nearly decade I've been at eMarketer. And I remember prior to the pandemic when I would tell people who worked at a different company about how flexible our work from home and remote working policy was, they were all really shocked. So I think a lot of what's happening now is that even though people have proven their ability to work from home, to even be more productive from working from home, a lot of the executives still have this kind of old school mentality of people needing to be in the office from 9 to 5. We have been so fortunate where we work that we've never really had that kind of mentality. But I think that, you know, a lot of these companies are grappling with this new reality of most people, you know, wanting to work hybrid or wanting to work fully remotely and being able to do their job. But, you know, knowing that back in the day, you were supposed to be in the office every single day, 5 days a week.
Yeah, I think that we're very lucky to work for a company that feels this way about remote work because, like, as you said, Jasmine, we've had a lot of employees doing this for a long time, but I absolutely do see it happening at other companies where I think, yeah, exactly what you said, like there still is that mentality. And I think that the disparity issue that this piece brings up is really important here, where mothers, people who live further away and have longer commutes, oftentimes, you know, like downtowns are very expensive to live in. If you're commuting from further away, you probably can't afford a place closer. And these disparities, these people who would benefit the most from staying home, kind of getting the short end of the stick, I think that's super, super important to keep in mind.
Yeah, the piece offered some tips for remote workers and managers. So tips for remote workers, it said, number one, establish an in-office ally who reminds the team to include you when impromptu decisions start being made. Number two, catch up with colleagues and keep your boss informed of your agenda, what you're doing and your accomplishments. Number three, if you're interviewing for a new job and want to work remotely, then you should ask which senior leaders at that new company work from home. to get a sense of how much they value flexible work and what your career might look like without coming into the office. And then tips for managers. Number 1, test out hybrid work yourself to build empathy for remote workers. Number 2, it says companies should start analyzing compensation of home workers and office workers the same way that they now examine pay by gender. This is from Mr. Kropp from Gartner. It said to ensure disparities don't emerge or widen, pointing to saying basically without intervention, we could see a widening of the gender pay gap. And 2 more tips for managers. One was some companies are experimenting with covering meeting room walls with huge screens so everyone dialing in appears life-size. Also recommends, good audio and phones in meeting rooms. That was always a big complaint of people who were dialing in remote, is them not being heard or not being able to hear what was going on in the room. And finally, making sure everyone signs off on projects to put the remote and in-person workers on equal footing. All right, that's all we've got time for working from somewhere. If you have any questions about working from somewhere yourself, or any articles you want us to review, or any questions at all about anything under the sun, we'll answer all of them for you at podcast@emarketer.com.
Yeah, and I'd say that if our flexible work from home policy, encourages you to apply for a job at our company, make sure you use my name, my full name, so I can get the referral upon application. Thank you.
Unbelievable.
Do you want to add the link to Blake for your social referral?
Time now for dinner party data. The part of the show where we tell you about the most interesting thing that we've learned this week. We start with Jasmine because she won. Jasmine, what you got for us?
So, Marcus, your article about pets in the pandemic sent me into an internet rabbit hole this morning.
Yep.
So I'm going to share a little bit more about what I learned about pet influencers. And the first and most important thing is that they're not called pet influencers. They're called petfluencers.
Oh.
Yep.
Must we?
We must, apparently. And the most famous petfluencer of all is a Pomeranian called GIFPOM. GIFPOM has about 10 million followers on Instagram.
Sorry, I love how Victoria's had a video of the whole time. She edits the show. And as soon as we started talking about pets, bam, she was there. She's engaged. Sorry, Jasmine.
Nope,
keep going.
Sorry. But for context, that means that GIFPOM has double the number of followers on Instagram that Hillary Clinton has, and about 1/10 the size of the Barcelona Football Club's follower account. So, and then on the influencer marketing scale, that makes GIFPOM a mega influencer. But most petfluencers are micro or nano influencers, meaning that they have fewer than 50,000 followers. But according to Hype Auditor, that also means that they have higher engagement rates than the average worldwide influencer engagement rate. And there you have it.
How much are these pets influencing people to do stuff? It's because they're cute? I just want to look at them a lot. That's right.
I don't know.
Are they getting you to buy like Nike sneakers? All right. That's very good. Very good. That's really interesting. Nina, you're next.
Okay, so I've been loving my people-less commutes in New York. But I apparently recently on Tuesday, the MTA...
By people-less, do you mean like you're not getting on the train, so therefore there are no people, or there are less people on the train?
No, there's less people on the train. I take the train. I have been taking the train throughout the pandemic, and there's usually been no one on. But on last Tuesday, ridership just hit 3 million, over 3 million for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. I think pre-pandemic it was like 5 million a day, and then it dropped to like really, really low, like under a million. So they're getting back up there. Not great for me, but good for the MTA.
Had you noticed it creeping up, or is this because you looked at the figures?
I think, yeah, you can kind of feel it on the trains now.
Okay.
Yeah, I love how the MTA had this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fix the subway while ridership was that low, and they did absolutely nothing.
Is it?
Yeah, they did do the L train. They did squeeze in a lot of.
They did squeeze in that L train repair. Yeah, I don't know. There was something sketchy going on with that L train repair because they were like, oh, it's gonna be shut down for 3 years, and then like right before they're gonna shut it down, they're like, oh, just kidding. We figured out a way to do it in a month. Okay.
It's like when you're flying and you're massively delayed at the airport, and you take off, and the pilot's like, "Don't worry, we're gonna get you there in time. We can go a bit fast." And you're like, "Go a bit faster. Just go that speed the whole time." Doing me a favor. Very good, very good. Blake, what have you got?
So similar to Jasmine, this pet story also got me curious in the general statistics around pet ownership, which confirmed my hunch. But I also found this survey from the American Pet Products Association to look at sort of like the most popular pets. So dogs, there are apparently 63.4 million dogs. Or million households that own dogs in the US. So dogs are the most popular. That's followed by cats at 42.7 million households. And then it drops off significantly to 11.5 million households with freshwater fish. And then you've got 5.7 million households with birds. And then surprisingly, horse and saltwater fish, both tied at 1.6. So I guess I would imagine saltwater fish are maybe pretty hard to maintain, but probably somewhat easier than a horse. But the thing that's interesting here is that it's kind of skewed when you just look at the total number of pets, because freshwater fish are actually the most popular. I guess, you know, people have multiple, in a fish tank, have multiple fish. So the 139 million freshwater fish, and then the next closest is just 94 million cats. So I guess that's a lot of fish. But I also thought that there would be more, like only 89 million dogs. Like, I feel like I've run into a lot of dogs. Like every day, just constantly, just dogs everywhere. And for there only to be 89 million, which would be like, I guess like less than 1 in 3 humans. But
maybe it depends on where you are. I think you should find a geographical breakdown of pet ownership.
Yeah, that's true. But like, you'd think like New York City is a terrible place to have a dog, yet they're everywhere. So I thought that maybe elsewhere, like it'd be, I don't know, like the nice suburban homes with the white picket fence and the dog, you'd think there'd be more of them, but I don't know.
I wonder if there's also like a household thing. Like there's more small households in New York where like with a white picket fence, you have one dog for like 6 people.
Huh.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Did you have numbers over time? Like a dog's on the up, whereas like horses maybe?
Well, yeah, they're definitely on the up. Wasn't that what... Well, I guess that was just pets. But yeah, there have been so many stories of like literally like adoption shelters being like picked dry during the pandemic because so many people wanted to adopt dogs.
My question is, who is going to take care of these poor pets if and when people need to return to work?
Big dog sitting industry coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be booming. I think we need to
There's
start
a business
dog walker. Yeah.
Very good. I got 2 quick ones for you. Number 1, Mr. Rogers once changed his show's format to accommodate one young blind girl. So he really is the best neighbor. Mr. Rogers began announcing that he was feeding the fish, speaking of pets, in every show because a father and his blind daughter would always tune into the show, and they wrote to explain to him that the daughter would get very worried, very concerned that the fish were not fed on the days that he didn't announce it. It's amazing.
Aww.
Yeah, shows you like
that's really sweet.
Doing what you can to accommodate everybody. So that's one. I didn't grow up with Mr. Rogers, but he sounds delightful, and I miss him even though I never knew he was a thing. Second thing I've got for you. One Italian town hands out wine like it's water. Okay, I'm going to mispronounce a lot of stuff, so brace yourself. Ortona Abruzzo, an Italian town near Rome that has been making wine for hundreds and hundreds of years, installed a free 24-hour red wine fountain. It was set up by a local winery called Dora Sarchesi, and although it's primarily to quench the thirst of those taking the Camino di San Tommaso pilgrimage, anybody can drink from the wine fountain. It's not the first public wine fountain in Italy. Venice had a fountain in St. Mark's Square for its annual carnival, but it's annual. And Spain has one too. That's open 8 till 8 at the Bodegas Irache. It's not going well. Located in Navarre at the foot of Mont Jura. That's pretty cool.
I like the direct correlation between countries that have siestas in the middle of the day also have free red wine to consume
on tap
at all times.
24 hours.
I feel like they need to go hand in hand.
I'm curious about the quality.
Yes.
I'm sure it's fantastic. Yeah. Just constantly.
That is all we've got time for today's episode. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for hanging out.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you to Nina.
Thank you.
Thank you to Blake.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening in. To ask us questions or just say hi, you can email us at podcast@emarketer.com. Next week on Monday, September 27th, we have a financial services webinar, co-brand credit card trends and opportunities with Jamie Toplin and Rob Rubin. Also on the same day, we have a Tech Talk webinar with Community, how to build loyalty communities through SMS marketing. Links to both of those are in the show notes. We'll see you guys on Monday, hopefully for the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. Have great weekends.